And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI. We're in Washington at the Cartes Payments meeting, and I have a chance to talk to a Californian who lives in New Zealand now, Ron DeDera, Director of MillenTech CTI Group in New Zealand. And Ron, great to see you. And just maybe if you could tell us a story about how you ended up in New Zealand from California.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Ken. Yeah, a question that's asked a number of times, but in many ways it started as a 3-year plan and has now ended up as 33. So a next 10 on top. And originally worked with some companies that were involved in the technology industry, getting into the US market, opportunity to come and work in New Zealand for the 3-year plan. And as I say, I've now got involved in the card industry, believe it or not, about 1986. This is a location Australia, New Zealand's used very strongly by a number of the schemes around the world as is basically a macro test, in a micro-sized market. So the ability to test a lot of new technologies, and now in the chip card and the EMV business, this is an area that we've had involvement with for a good 7-8 years now. A lot of our clients moving into the chip card area, personalization of their pins, how they can do that on their cards, as well as still working with the multi-channels of magnetic stripe. So that's the industry. New Zealand and Australia have actually built quite a an interesting marketplace for early adoption. Sometimes even talked about as claimed as the highest per capita number of terminals used in the world, like pretty close to 33 to 1 as a ratio of people to terminals. Cards, same kind of thing. So high user and high adoption helps us learn an awful lot about some of the new cards, their performance, what happens in those areas. And our laboratory has been, now this is its 20th year, 20th anniversary in physical card testing of a lot of the areas of performance of life of cards. And how long will these new technology cards actually last? They have a lot of technology within, often talked about being walking appliances because of all the functionality. But there's a challenge for manufacturers to also produce those with the robustness that will last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And these are things that laboratories like our company gets involved to be able to work through the ISO simulation and the accredited tests to determine how long should this card actually work in the field, among other accredited areas that both manufacturers and card issuers need to know.
Sure. One of the themes here at the Cartes conference in Washington is the October startup of the use of chip cards on a wide scale in the U.S. and a greater responsibility by the retailers to have their terminals ready to go to accept chip cards. What is some of the learning that's happened in other parts of the world? As you said, New Zealand, Australia is often a test center for some of these processes. What are some of the things that the know-how that's been learned in other parts of the world that we're going to need to keep an eye on as chip cards become used avidly in the United States later this year?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the liability shift is always one of those real challenges, and at one point or another, a line has to be drawn in the sand, and otherwise targets will never be reached. But certainly the learnings that come from it, the education is a big part of both the issuer as well as the retail level. What is it that we're working with? What are these standards and what are the elements behind? So I'd actually say that probably the area that we saw an awful lot of uplift in the industry is technologists coming on board to really, they understand, say from a retail standpoint, retailers understand how payments work for retail. But understanding what actually happens in an actual payment transaction and how that transaction actually fills the full cycle is not one of the areas that a lot of the retailers have a lot of experience with. So they're starting to bring on their technical people to understand how those payment cycles work, what is it the technologies we're working with, the terminals, whether we have to certify those and what levels. So I actually think the real attention does have to be brought into there will be no drop-in solutions. There is always going to be something where you need to be engaged internally as an organization so that you can control your destiny as well as what a lot of your mentors might and outsource partners may do for you. And we feel very strongly that the strongest organizations are the ones that actually do get involved to understand the technical area that they're involved in. It's not it's going to be something that you're going to be living through service life cycles for a very long time, and you do need to understand what you're doing. So that becomes almost a first phase before you even get into adopting the technology, because you must know what you're working with.
Absolutely, and going back and forth, I guess quite often between New Zealand, Australia, and the United States, other parts of the world. What are some of the differences that you see? What jumps out at you when you come back to the United States in consumer banking? Perhaps that is different, or maybe it's quite similar to what you see in your area of the Pacific.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think actually one of the things that trying to change customer experience or customer behaviors, that's a very difficult trail to go down and expect you're going to actually change a pattern immediately. And so hence when I hear that, well, we have a very strong signature-based market in the US, we need to change to PIN for a number of good security reasons. This is going to help the market a great deal, but there may be a transition that is longer than what a lot of people may feel, because that's also dictated by the customer behavior. And changing their behavior immediately, as people often raise chip and PIN in the UK. And I had involvement in the early days of that involvement, and it also was a transition. It wasn't something that overnight everyone changed to PIN, or nor did the infrastructure allow for that to happen. So it was a soft transition. Our EMV models that are working now as probably one of the strongest standards for chip cards is probably where everyone is looking to actually try to adopt a common platform so that there may be a faster implementation to the PIN work. And that's where probably in the UK it took them a little bit longer, because that standard was only in some of the infancy periods. So hopefully, Ken, that answers some of your questions.
That's great, Ron DeDera. Ron, just tell us, coming to a conference here in Washington, D.C. is a long trip for you. What are some of the things that you like to talk to people, prospects, about your company back in New Zealand?
Well, I guess when you're in a testing laboratory that, particularly in this area of coming out with benchmark tests that meet the ISO standards precisely, we don't sell test equipment. We provide a quality assurance level of partnership, primarily with issuers that are producing some of these cards for the first time to their customers. And that happens worldwide. There are only a few labs in the world that do the kind of work that we do. If you like our point of difference, we provide the most accredited tests in the world in our particular space. And that the comfort is to be able to come to the US and come to Washington, D.C., talk to some of the new people getting involved with chip card work, and giving them the perhaps comfort that we might be able to assist them with the new technology to ensure that what they produce is going to last in the field and do what they want to have, the best customer experience for their clients.
Okay, very good. Ron DeDera, Director, CEO of MillenTech CTI Group in Lower Hutt, New Zealand. Great to meet you, and hope you have a great stay here in Washington.
Thank you again, Ken. And the weather's tremendous. We're working into winter now, so it's a nice change to kind of miss part of that step at the moment.
Yeah, we had enough winter here in the Northeast, if you heard about or saw the pictures. Ron DeDera, Director, CEO, MillenTech, CTI Group. I'm sure your website will have lots of information about what your company does. But just give us the name of the website again.
Okay, yeah, MillenTech.com, MillenTech.com, and that will find us in the group.
Very good. Will you see a baseball game while you're here?
Unfortunately not. I'm heading off to back through Europe and Dubai and then back to New Zealand on the way back. This is our 25th anniversary as a company group, and so this is a bit of a world tour for us as well, and we're very proud of our achievements.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Ron DeDera from MillenTech CTI Group in New Zealand. Great to meet you. This is Ken Kraetzer in Washington, D.C. for CBSI Services.